All right, he survived the train. I was saying before you got here, Frank Bello is here. I said before you got here, I said, you and I were texting about this. Like, you were like, I don't want to make you schlep into the city. I'm like, well, I don't want to make you schlep into the city. We could put the mic in front of you. What are you doing? You don't have the mic. You don't know where to work a mic. You've been singing for 40 years.
I'm new to this.
I said, but here we are. We're
yes,
back.
We are.
We're back in the New York groove. You almost got in a fight on the train, or you watched someone almost get in a fight.
It was so close. And being a New Yorker, as you know, Eddie, I just don't want any problems. I don't want any problems with anybody. I just want to go to the train. I don't want to take a car in because the city with the traffic. I don't want to deal with this shit.
I do that. I'm the asshole that takes the car.
Oh, I am not.
It cost me $65.
That's ridiculous. So Metro North. So I do that all the time. I come in, sit in my seat in the corner so no asshole could be near me. Of course, the asshole has to come near me without a ticket. So the conductor, the poor guy is just trying to make a fucking living. He's just trying to make a living. He comes up, ticket, I give him my ticket. Next booth over, next seat over is the guy. The guy that refuses to buy a ticket, but he's going to be adamant about not giving him a ticket. So I need your ticket, and then you have to get off the next day. I'll get off when I have to. Right? It's like that. All of a sudden,
the attitude, everybody pushing the edge. I said to you, I said before you came in, I said, we have a very New York show today because it's the first time in the New York City headquarters in a long time.
Awesome.
And then the guests are you and JJ, two quintessential New York guys who are just, we're all fucking on the edge. And
I'm on the edge right now.
Everybody, this city will do it to you.
Yeah,
It'll do it. You don't even have to be here 2 seconds. It gets you like that.
And then I'm running here I'm running through the Diamond District like an idiot with a bag of books. Like I stole diamonds. They look like a freaking lunatic. What the hell's going on, man? But welcome, Eddie.
It's good to see you, Frank.
Same here, bro.
It's good to see you. We just saw each other for Oklahoma on Labor Day weekend.
Which was
Anthrax turned in a great set. We hung out all day.
That was a nice hang. Coming from where we come from now, nobody knows anybody anymore. It's so sterile backstage.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy about what's going on. We're very thankful to play some shows, but when you go backstage, you know it. It's very sterile. You have to be really careful. Who's appropriate? You have to take down the mask. Do I put up the mask?
Well, every band's got different rules. I just came off my busiest month of my life in October.
I see. Yeah.
And everywhere I went, every band, every city, every venue, every gig is different. You've got to adapt. Now you tell me if you feel this too, and I'm just saying the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm not in any way diminishing COVID. And again, I take it seriously, and I'm vaxxed, and I got no problem, and I'll whatever. But I also believe you got to live. So, but you do, and I have seen at gigs that COVID has also become a really great excuse for a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
Like you don't want to do a meet and greet, you don't want to see somebody. I'm not talking you.
No, not me.
I'm talking about.
I love everybody.
But I'm just talking in general. Like, I've been at shows, I'm not going to name names, where the band is like, we're locked down, we're not seeing anybody. And then they see the person they want to see at the corner. Dude, come back. And you see him back there with no mask, yapping it up. So it's just like I was just telling the big boss here in the corner. I'm like, I fly a lot. And since I fly so much, I'm often in business because I get bumped up.
Cool.
Used to be you get nice food and whatever. Now, like, they brought me the lunch, and the bread was wrapped in cellophane like it was a nuclear bomb, like to be insulated. And then the salad comes, and it's in a bowl, unwrapped, just sitting there, greens, like out in the air. Like, what's the difference?
It's like it's specifics. It's all specifics. This is good. This is bad.
It's madness. It's out of control.
Look,
none of it makes sense.
We all want to be
anymore.
careful. Look, I have a son. You have children. Blah blah blah. We all want to be careful for our families. I get it, but at the same time, you do have to live.
You got to live.
Yeah, it's common sense.
Do the best you can and get by. And
everybody live their life.
See where it goes. That's all you can do. So the book.
Yes, it's very weird to be here on a book, Eddie.
The author, Frank Bello. The decades I've known him, the author, Frank Bello, is here. The book it's out now. It's actually out
literally
now.
Today.
That's right, because we talked about it. Today's the release date.
Today's the release date of the book, Fathers, Brothers, and Sons. Look, I'm new to this, guys, so have patience with me. I'm learning how to do. I know records. I know how to release records and do that stuff. Releasing your life in a book is really scary. I'm raw, Eddie. That's as raw as you're ever going to see me. A lot of the stuff you probably didn't know about me.
Well, you're right. I've known you, like, I feel like my whole life, but literally I was thinking about easily 40 years.
Yeah.
40 years. And as much as I know you, there's things I learned in this book having read it. But here's the other thing. I remember when you were writing this book, and we were talking, and you had picked my brain.
I needed it.
Because I did a couple books, but they weren't this kind of book. Eventually, I will do this kind of book. But my books are more about the bands I love and stuff like that. But you were saying to me about some of the things in here that you were I guess, I don't know, apprehensive, concerned about, like, should I go there? Should I open up? How raw should I get? You were really on the fence about that.
Was.
And I told you that I thought whatever you were comfortable with, you should.
Exactly.
So tell me how you wrestled with all that. And because for people that don't know, so Frank's book is subtitled Surviving Anguish, Abandonment, and Anthrax. So the anguish is the murder of your brother,
Sure,
which is covered in the book.
Yes.
And the abandonment is your father.
Exactly.
So those are heavy things that you had to get into in here.
Yeah. Because, I mean, look, a lot of people are hurting, and a lot of people have written me about this because they know my story. And I found during COVID, it was the right time. Joe MacGyver, my co-writer, we've been talking about doing this for 8 years. 8 years. And this was the time. We finally decided this is the time, this downtime. And I needed this. I needed to get it out cathartically. You know, it was very freeing, and I needed you, and I thank you for this. This is not a kiss ass to you. I needed that validation when you gave me it and said, go with what you're comfortable. And I just thought, man, if I can help other people that are going through, like, whatever, loss, there's a lot of stuff in the book, loss, abandonment, all those issues, and know that you can brush yourself off, and at the end of the day, you can rally. Yeah, and I'm lucky enough to be in a band and successful and all that stuff. Thankfully, I'm very grateful for that. But I want to show people that, yeah, you get hit down enough times, you could still get up and brush yourself off. I think in these times specifically, I'm not just using this time, just it's important to know that you can get up and move on. And I want people to know that. It's not just, and yeah, there's a lot of great rock and roll stories, the Pantera stuff, the Kiss stuff, all these great rock and roll stories that we put out, and I dug out of my head through Joel. Joel's a great igniter of lighting stories under my ass. And once they started, and they just kept flowing out, and even reliving this, it was a lot of fun to relive the Pantera stories with Dimebag and the Kiss stories, harassing Kiss in front of a coin management on Madison Avenue, not far from here. Yep.
That was amazing to me. And I told Frank, you know, I get so many books, and I try to read them when I want to read every book before I talk to the person who wrote it about it, obviously. But I'm literally reading them so much that sometimes things get jumbled and you forget.
Sure.
But so I read your book a little while ago, but the stuff in there about So the guy that you stalked Kiss with is a mutual friend of ours.
Stalked is a strong word. I'm afraid to use that word because I don't want a negative content.
Right.
I don't want that.
But Gene, well, that's Tom Brown, our friend Tom.
Our friend Tom.
But Gene, talk about going full circle.
Totally, dude.
So you're the guy that's literally hanging out in front of these studios and management offices to meet Kiss, which is all of our common bond, being Kiss fans. And who writes the foreword to your book?
Amazing.
Than Gene Simmons.
You couldn't.
You can't go more full circle than that.
Not at all. And the way, if you read the foreword by Gene, it's Gene talking as I've read a lot of interviews with Gene, and I've talked to him a lot. I've never heard him speak like this about his dad, about his upbringing, and he goes deep. He goes deep, and it
what
really
do developers build on the SendGrid API?
I thought that was really interesting. Is that it's very different voice for Gene.
Absolutely.
You know, and he's connecting with you on that same level of your dad abandoning you.
Absolutely.
And that bond and that connection. But you actually met. Now this is what I didn't know, because I told Frank, I said, as long as we've been friends, there's things in the book that I learned. Correct me if I'm wrong on the timeline, but you actually met Gene before when they were still wearing makeup, right?
Oh yeah, no doubt, dude.
Without makeup.
This was, dude. I'm sorry.
Like he brought you into the studio, right? Were they making Unmasked or something?
That was
that story.
What album was Young and Wasted on?
Lick It Up.
So
they're without makeup, but you wouldn't have seen them.
You wouldn't have seen them yet, right? So this was a quick story from the book. Remember Right Track Studios on 48th Street?
Yeah, I go there all the time.
Of course. So Tom, my friend, you know Tom.
That's literally one street over.
One
from
street
where we're
over.
sitting.
It's very close to here.
It's all knocked down now, though.
Tommy got a call, as he did. Tommy got a call that. Go ahead. We want to explain.
No, but I need. So Tommy. So people that don't know, Tommy is our mutual friend, Tom Brown. He's not in the music industry.
Not at all.
Just a friend of ours. And Frankie grew up. You guys grew up together.
Yes.
So how was, because you got to remember, this is before text, email, cell phone.
All of that.
How was Tom getting phone calls?
This guy had
being
connections.
Tipped off about Kiss's whereabouts.
I don't know how he got the connections. This is what Tommy would do. He would call me during the day, and before school and stuff, like, "Hey, I just got a tip. Literally, I just got a tip. They're going to be in today." That means they're going to be in the management in front. They have a meeting scheduled, and this is January, February, dude, freezing our balls off. So we go downtown on Manhattan Express, me and Tom, I cut out of school, go down and wait, literally wait with our jackets shivering in front of a coin management and wait for, we didn't know what they really looked like. We'd wait for these big, tall guys with suits on, with long hair, with masks. That's what they did in those days. With the
They
high
wore
heels.
a mask?
When in those days it was 77, 78. I'm talking about that specific time. So they would walk in, and obviously, who else is going to walk in like that? So Tommy, right away, Tommy and I were right up. We asked every question.
Did they wear bandanas or anything, or did they cover their faces or no?
When they walked, when they knew they were going to be known, when the press was around, sometimes they would cover their faces because they didn't want to get pictures. Remember in those days?
Right.
So they would, if they knew press and people with cameras, they would cover their faces either with their hands or wear a mask or a bandana. Those were great times. We knew it, so we got this time. Of course, we got 1,000 signatures from these guys, 1,000. But every time they signed, we get to ask them questions and more questions. So everything was Kiss. What's the new album like? How many songs? When's the new tour? What are your costumes going to be like? What's the new staging? Everything in a row. And we used to have those high, annoying voices, ching, 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 ching. And Tommy had this great high, annoying, ching, 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 ching. And I remember Tommy kept patting Paul on the back. Hey, Paul, you sound so great on the... And dude, Paul was he was like, what are you doing, dude? It was so great, the times of my life. But after a while, you go through this life, and we get the whole Anthrax thing. Gene, Paul, they still remember those days. Specifically, Gene remembers these days to this day. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's an awesome.
It had to
thing.
mean a lot to you that he agreed to do this. How did you approach him about doing it, and did he ask for money?
My co-writer Joel asked me. I said, if you can get him to do that, absolutely. And so we approached him, and he did. He was more than happy to do it, and he did a great. I actually couldn't believe when I was reading the words. He was talking about me. He was talking about my bass playing and the whole father thing. It was very big for me. You have to understand. So I think Kiss fans, I'm not trying to sell the book. Well, I am trying to sell the book, but I think they'd appreciate it, just that alone, and then going into my Kiss fandom. Yeah, the whole thing.
But he doesn't get a point or anything on the book for
not yet, unless they sign something I don't know about. You never know. Did I sign anything? No, you're gonna go into the whole thing.
So the book. So here's the deal. So this book is interesting in a lot of ways because it's Frank's story. It's his family growing up, his dad abandoning him, his brother tragically being murdered. All of this is covered in the book. So in a way, the book actually takes you on a roller coaster.
It does. It's a ride.
And your life was a roller coaster. I mean, we're not talking about this. This is not fiction. This is something that you dealt with.
It's all real.
And for as much as there's funny stuff about running after Kiss in New York as a kid and all that, there's tough things in here for you to deal with. And one of the things that you cover in this book is about your brother when he was murdered and the actions you took. And I know you were on the fence about whether you should go there, but since it's in the book, I'm not saying anything that you didn't go public with, but what you would imagine how that would sit with you and what you almost did. Can you talk a little bit about that without giving too much in the book? Because you almost did something that you might not be sitting here with me right now if you did.
I'd either be dead or in jail. Either one. And that's the guy. Eddie, you know me a long time. I don't bullshit. I don't lie. I don't make things up. After Anthony's death, I didn't know how to deal with it. Quite honestly, I went dark. And I've come through this through a lot of therapy. And you didn't know this about me. Teresa, my wife, didn't know this. I didn't tell anybody in my family what happened after Anthony's death. So it envisions him. I
didn't even know it was happening at the time it was happening.
Yeah.
Because I knew you then. I mean, I didn't realize you were in that dark of a place.
Because I can be the nice guy, but the other side. And dude, to tell you the truth, I didn't even know that was me. But I had this vengeance thing. And I swear to God, Eddie, as I'm speaking, I became the hunter where 10 o'clock, it was literally 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night. I knew the specific areas in the Bronx where these people hung out.
That you suspected killed your brother.
Well, I knew. I knew I knew a lot of the people around the area. See, there were a lot of witnesses. This sounds like a Law and Order film, right?
This is real life.
It's real life.
But back up a second, Frank. For people
please.
who haven't read the book, your brother. Tell them the circumstances surrounding your brother being murdered.
March 25th, 1996. My brother Anthony was 23 years old. In the Bronx, New York, he was shot down from an assailant. Long story short. There were a lot of witnesses, but they all backed out because they were afraid they were going to get
repercussions.
That's probably a better word to go there.
Yeah.
So there was going to be a repercussion. So there was one witness, and they took us to the Bronx criminal court system that I don't wish on my worst enemy. They brought us through the whole Bronx criminal court system, and it was the good guys on one side, the bad guys on the other side, and the bad guys were trying to stare us down, want to starting fights in the court.
It's literally like something out of a movie.
It was like I use this a lot in the book. It's like a Scorsese movie. This was the truth, and they put us in the same elevator with the killer's family. I mean, so for me, again, and you have to say the accused killers, right? You have to say that, but we all know. But I'll leave it there. So after that, after seeing my brother on their sheet, I snapped, Eddie. I'm being really honest. I snapped, and I haven't told my wife this. I hadn't told my mom. I haven't told anybody in my family. I came out of my condo in Yonkers at 10:30 every night, sweated up, sweatshirt, hood, hat, the whole thing, man. I didn't look like me. Didn't give a shit about anything. Frank Bello from Anthrax or anything. Nothing mattered. It was tunnel vision. I was on a mission. I talked to the wrong guys. You're looking at me like you can't believe I'm.
No, it's not that at all.
This is true.
No,
you don't know this like me.
But Frank, I'm looking at you in a way, saying to myself, I don't know if I could be that much different than what you just did.
Yes,
because we're wired very similar.
We
you and I.
totally
We've talked
are.
about it for decades.
Absolutely.
I consider you like a brother.
And
I
you
really
are
do.
a brother to me. Totally.
Same here. So we have beyond all the same music we love. We've had. For people listening, I mean, Frank and I talk off there. We're again,
close.
I tell people all the time, like, if I was in the business of flipping burgers, I know that people would still be my friends. You're one of those people.
Absolutely.
So our connection is way beyond the music thing. And we're very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking at you is saying, I can't tell you I'd be any different if I went through this.
So you know that dark place that you're feeling right now? I went 100% full in on that. And because nothing mattered, my family didn't matter, Teresa didn't matter, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, nothing mattered. So I went dark. I never talked to these people, Eddie. I went to the wrong people, getting the wrong things in my hands, and you know what I'm talking about. Checking weapons. I never did. I never fired a gun.
So you went to, you never fired a gun, and you went to go find, to take revenge. You went, look, you're in New York City, you get whatever you want, to get like an unmarked gun or something like that? Was that what you're trying to do?
It was totally unmarked. It was filed.
Did you actually get it?
I didn't buy it. I told him I'd be back, but then I kept hunting. I wanted to make sure I had the right target. Not to be this sounds crazy. This sounds crazy. I know that. I wanted to be sure until I got the target where that person was going to be. And this is how crazy it was. I saw black, dude. I'm telling you, I just saw nothing but it had to happen. 2 weeks of doing this, then I was ready to do it. Payments were going to happen. I had the dough on me and all that stuff.
You're going to do it yourself, or you're going to hire someone?
All me. Fuck that. All me.
So what do you mean payments were going to happen to who?
I was going to pay for the gun.
Oh, the piece.
The piece.
Okay,
I was going to, because you had to have cash and all that stuff.
Right,
had to be right.
right.
I had to check out, make sure I asked this guy this other guy, if he was real, if he's the real dude, and he's not going to get me in trouble, all that shit on the other side, right? So I had to check all of it out. So finally, when I did that, parading around, about 2 weeks into doing this, and this one specific area, man, I just kind of thought, I don't know where it came from. My mom started coming into my head. I said, look, if I do this, there's no way it's going to end good. I either am going to wind up dead, which is more than likely dead because of the retribution. Retribution, more than likely I've been dead. And that's not to sound like a tough guy. Or you'd be in jail, the other side of it, right? So either way, my mom loses a son, another son, right after the tragic death of my brother. That kind of pulled me out. And then I thought, look, I'm going to lose my family, my wife, who was going to be my wife, Teresa, was my girlfriend at the time, and then Anthrax. All this thing started coming. I said, what are you doing? And then I thought of my brother saying to me, slapping me. He said, this bitch slapping me. I said, what the fuck are you thinking? Get back home. I really thought this. It said he would never want that. He would never, Anthony would kick the shit out of me if he knew what I was doing. And it just didn't make sense. And I was so happy because, Eddie, when I tell you I was this close, when the money was out and all that stuff, and I had it targeted, that's as scared as I've ever been of not knowing who I was. That's as honest as I can be with that, because it went dark. Nothing, when I say nothing mattered, because all I wanted, and it didn't matter if I died. It didn't fucking matter, because it was all about easing that pain that I felt and my family felt. I needed something back, and that's the truth. I'm glad it didn't happen, because I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't my son, the whole thing, the whole game. You lose everything. But I never talked about that. And I brought it in the book because I thought it was important for people who are in dark times and knowing they can get out of it before making a move. And that's the truth. Because I don't want people to go there. I mean, there's so much fucking pain out there right now. And why not come out with a book that just says, look, brush yourself off and fucking move on to tomorrow. That's what, for me, it's not a self-help thing. I'm not preaching. I don't give a shit.
Right.
It's my story. It's my story that if it could help one person that buys a book, then it's done its job.
The last thing on this part of the book, because obviously there's a lot to this, and make no mistake, the book has all the great Anthrax stories, and you've got the stuff with Diamond, you've got the Kiss stuff, and all the great stories in there. But and again, it's been a little bit since I read the book, and I read the PDF you sent, so it's the first time I'm seeing it here physically. But I believe you say something in the book like the person that you are certain did this, that you know their whereabouts now, right? That they moved out of the area or something like that?
I don't know the exact area, but I know where they moved. Because you find out, look, when you're a neighborhood guy, you're a neighborhood guy. That's just the way it works. You hear things. You can take it with a grain of salt, or you can believe the truth. There's some people that I know that I trust that have told me the truth. And that's fine. Now I have to live on this because that's what my therapist says. I have to live on karma. Karma, I believe what comes around goes around. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said in this book, I was never going to even come close to saying anything about this because it's a dangerous subject.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. Did you have, because I know when you and I talked, when you were writing it, we talked about it, and I said, Frank, whatever you're comfortable with, you should go there, that you feel good about putting out there. But was there a chance that when you were writing this that you weren't going to put that in there at all?
Yeah, totally. And when I talked to you, and that's the truth, Eddie, when I talked to you, it kind of said, I have to do this. It's the story of my brother. It's the real story of my family, the pain we went through. Yeah. People are going through tough times. If they can relate to that and knowing that we can come out of it. And that's what this is, man. It's kind of like a celebration. Like, look, through my health, through my strong family, through those ties and keeping the strong women in my life, they kept my head together. And that's the truth, man. Because otherwise, it was Frank going off the edge and maybe probably not here, and not even to sound like a fucking hero or anything. It's just the truth.
Yeah. And when you talk about the strong women in your life, I mean, there's great stories in there about the family, your family, and everything. And again, being raised in a totally dominant Italian household, and my mom being 100%, and that upbringing and that family structure around you and food and dinners and all that, it's just such a big important part of the dynamic as well. One of the real interesting things in the book, because of course all the Anthrax stuff I pretty much lived,
sure,
but and it's all great stuff, but the thing is that I was interested in reading about, and I know you did talk about it, is when you left Anthrax and you played in Helmet. For people that don't know, Frankie was out of Anthrax for how long?
Year and a half.
Was it that short of a time? It felt longer.
It felt longer, but I think it was a year and a half, 2 years, probably closer to 2 years.
It was so weird for us who are your friends that you weren't in the band.
I know.
Because when you think about it, so Frank tells the story in the book about getting in the band, which you were just kind of the kid hanging out, and Dan Lilker didn't do it anymore, and how you end up you tell that story, because when you got in the band, it was, I remember that's in the book, you kind of got thrown into the fire a little bit, didn't you?
Well, L'Amour's was my first show. Remember, so it's still on YouTube. I watched it. It scared the shit out of me all over again.
You were like 18,
dude. 18. It was nuts. A big packed show for Anthrax and stuff. So I remember. I don't know if I say this in the book. I got this pain. You ever have a burning in your neck, like when you headbang? And I remember I had this. I thought I snapped my neck in the first song, Death Rider. And I'm headbanging. I said, oh, and so I heard this. I said, what the fuck is that? I'm like a headbang, just trying to keep going. I'm not going to fuck up my first show. Felt this fucking burning going up and down my head. I was like, did I snap my neck? Am I going to have to go to the hospital? I mean, all these things throughout the first song, Death Rider. I said, please, God, let me just get through this. Long story short, I put ice on it afterwards. It wasn't broken or anything like that. I must have pulled some kind of muscle, but I really thought I snapped something. That was my first show. I thought I definitely had some shit in my pants. There's no doubt. There's no doubt for that. You probably see it on stage in that video on YouTube. You could probably watch it. Frank shitting in his pants right there.
I didn't know that was on YouTube. I have to look at that. I may have even been there for all I know. I don't know.
Me with my Guido haircut. It was awesome.
But then there was a brief time that you were out of the band and you were playing in Helmet, and you talk about that very positively. You enjoyed doing that.
It was a total.
I came to see you do that. I remember here in New York. I saw you.
It was awesome. I loved it. It was a great time. And the truth of the matter is, and you could ask Charlie and Scott this, we just needed space. We needed time apart. We were together. We were arguing. And we decided, look, we just need a break. So Joey Vera took my place in Anthrax. He's a great friend of mine. I love Joey. He played bass in Anthrax. Johnny Tempesta called me up a couple of weeks later. He heard about it. He says, come out and jam with Helmet. 37 songs in, we started jamming. Paige asked me to learn 37 songs just to hang out. So we did, and it worked, and it was a great time. It was a great time, and I also think it made me a better bass player.
Yeah.
It did. It made me sing. It made me like really sink in and dive into the pick. I really enjoyed it.
It was just so weird though, because and Joey's great. Nothing against Joey
Love
Bear or
Joey.
anything, but it just like was, and going to see Anthrax is like. The Ballbuster's not here. Where is he? Like this can't be. This can't be happening.
Well, you know what's even better? I went to see Anthrax without me in L.A. With my friend Clint. And while I was on tour with Helmet, we had a night off. Anthrax was playing in L.A. with Joey Vera, one of my friends. So imagine, I say this in the book. So imagine, I didn't want anybody to feel bad. Anybody to feel weird, because Joey's a tight friend of me. I love him. And the guys, I know it must have felt weird when I walked in. I just immediately walked in, hey, I hugged everybody. And then after everything was good, everything was calm, then I just went up to my seat, dude, and I watched Anthrax. My first Anthrax show. Really, it was awesome. I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
That's a weird thing when you think about it. Like I read a book, forget what Aerosmith book it was. Joe Perry went to see Aerosmith without him when he wasn't in. Joey Kramer watched Aerosmith play once with another drummer. Like it's one thing not being in the band, but watching it. I remember Udo told me he went to see Except with Mark singing.
How was that for him?
I imagine it wasn't great. I mean, Mark's great, but
Mark's
I imagine
great.
I imagine for Udo probably wasn't great. But
I loved it. Joey did a great job. I thought it was him and Bush. Bush was singing,
right.
So it was like half of Armored Saint too. It was kind of cool seeing that whole
exactly.
Anthrax Armored Saint. It was cool. They sounded great. Joey played all the bass parts right. It was all good. So why not, dude? Life is short.
Yeah. The book is called Fathers, Brothers, and Sons. Surviving Anguish, Abandonment, and Anthrax by Frank Bello with Joel MacGyver, and it's out today with a foreword by Gene Simmons. How great is that?
That's awesome.
Now, what do we got going on? We got to go to break, Joel, or what? Am I right now?
Yeah.
Because you're not playing the music, are you?
Not yet.
All right, because I'm just making sure my headphones are working. I haven't been in the studio in a long time.
Friday, Eddie, I'm doing an appearance Friday.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, Revolution Records in the city.
All right.
I'm doing Friday at 7 p.m. Everybody come out. It's free. Doing Q&As, maybe some acoustic songs, have some fun, some ball busting, and some stuff about the book. Come on out, Revolution Records, 7 p.m. Friday night.
Where is that?
It's down in way downtown near God, I forgot where it was.
Just Google it.
Just
Revolution,
Google it.
Revolution Records here in New York City, 7 o'clock this Friday.
Thompson Street.
Go meet Frank, get the book, get it signed, and you're going to love this read. It's really, really great.
Thanks,
I
Eddie.
really, really enjoyed it. Frank's not going anywhere, by the way.
No.
We're going to
JJ's
do our
coming.
top of the hour, and then we got another hour to go. I don't know if he's here yet, but JJ French, who also has a book, is coming in. So it'll be great. We can bust JJ's balls a little bit. We
I
talk
love it.
about everybody's book.
That's why I'm here.
That's what we're here for. Maybe we'll even grab a few calls. All right, well, JJ's not here yet, so now he's probably late. Maybe he's fighting with somebody on a train. Who knows? It is New York.
It
so
happens,
Anything
believe
could be possible.
LAR.
When JJ walks in, we'll get him on. When he gets yapping, my God, the three of us. A lot of words a second between the three of us.
That'd
man.
be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Have you seen JJ with the shaved head yet?
No.
He has a totally shaved head now.
Good for him.
Yeah, he rocks
Freeing.
it.
Good
Yeah,
for him, man.
yeah.
Hey, why not?
Yeah, I'm going to be that way any day now. I'm headed
Dude,
that
we
way
all want to do
myself.
it. Why not everybody?
Well, you
do
still
that?
have your hair. You can rock it. Your hair's great still.
Yeah, but if I did it, Scott and me would be weird on one side. I have to grow a goatee, and all of a sudden you get bookends of head.
You know what else I'm thinking is when we were talking about how I'm in New York City for the first time in ages, and of course you don't live in the city, but you're just outside as well.
Yeah.
You're the only Anthrax, such a quintessential New York band, and you're the last guy still here.
Last man
How come
standing.
you didn't get the memo?
That's until they kill me, I guess. it's Charlie's in Chicago.
Nobody's left in New York anymore. Period.
Dude, everybody, it was the great escape, it seems, especially during COVID. Everybody took off, man. Everybody.
Not even that, though.
Yeah.
Before that, it's just like when we were doing that metal show, people said, why did Joey's do it in L.A. all that time when you're all based in New York? I'm like, because nobody's in New York. There's no guests. They're all gonna.
It's the truth.
So it's definitely, and now it seems like people are either, there's still a lot of L.A., but it's definitely, the migration is either Nashville or Vegas.
Totally.
It seems like,
Yeah.
and no coincidence, neither state has state tax.
You know, you and I bitch about this all the time about the taxes here, Jersey, New York. It's insane.
There's an election today going on.
Dude, don't I know it?
Don't I know it?
So we'll talk about it later.
I'll be watching that ticker when I get home. With my fingers crossed.
The end of the day, I just don't look. My son is 15. He's a sophomore in school. My thing is a couple of more years of this nonsense with the crazy taxes. It's insane. They do dartboards about the numbers they want to hit this year. It's ridiculous what they do. So that's my thing.
My gosh, your son is how old? 15?
He's taller than me, and
crazy.
maybe I'm shrinking. I probably am.
Well, you do shrink when you get older.
Dude, I'm shrinking. I'm hunching with bass player hunch. I got all that going. So
but you know what? Having just seen Anthrax, you still bring that energy, man. It's crazy what you're doing up there. Thanks. Let's get a couple quick calls in for Frank. I think JJ might be outside the door. I don't know.
Cool.
Here's Max in Orlando. Hey, Max.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity. I just wanted to say to Frank specifically, just thank you for the inspiring story. I think it's been tough these days, but listening to you talk from the heart and sharing what you've shared, especially with your new book, there's just something really incredible to be said about that. And I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for inspiring me on a personal level.
Wow.
Frank.
Thank you for the kind words, Max. Thank you so much. That's exactly what I wanted to do with the book. So thank you. If you make you feel better about tomorrow, that's what it's about. Thanks, bro.
Thank you, Max.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate the call, man. Let's get one more in here. Scott in Rochester. Go ahead, Scott, and then we're going to get JJ in the conversation. Hey, Scott.
Eddie, how you doing? Frank, how you doing, man?
Hey, Scott. How are you, bro?
So I just wanted to say, prior to today, you were always my number one guy in metal that I wanted to meet. You always seemed like such a genuine, great guy. And after today, man, I'm just blown away. I would consider myself lucky to meet you one day. And I just want to say thank you for everything. And the resemblance you bear to Cliff Burton is stunning. I don't know if anyone's ever told you that, but I've always wanted to say that.
Well, thank you for that. That's a compliment. Big compliment. Thank you so much for that, bro.
Thanks, Scott, for the call. You know, that call could have went
Either way. Either way. Yeah, I was worried. I took a pause there.
Were you waiting for that?
Holding the breath there. Did you hear the breath?
Frank, I liked you, and then up until today,
then I heard your story.
Then it was like,
just not into it.
Fuck this guy.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Hey, let's let JJ get settled. Let's do a quick break here, Joel, right at the top. So we'll get a break out of the way. We'll come back, and we'll let everybody get settled in, and we'll bring JJ French into the conversation, who also has a fantastic book, Twisted Business, which is out. We'll talk to JJ about that next on Trunk Nation. Hold on. I told everybody it's going to be the most New York. This is the most New York day. You want to be back in New York? This is the most New York day you could ever have. JJ's here. JJ French, Frank Bello, and me. Well, wait, before we even get back to this, so we were just talking. So the reason we were talking off the air is JJ. For those, and you've seen it because JJ does a podcast now. There's photos, whatever. But JJ now has a shaved head. But what we didn't learn, Frank and I just learned during the commercial break, is that you've had a shaved head for like 40 years. We just didn't know it.
No idea.
Yeah. Well, actually, it wasn't always, because there was a lot of hair left. Mm-hmm. But as years went by, less and less and less of it was mine. You know, people say to me, who does your, what was the line? How much did you pay to get your hair done? And I said, there was like some joke I would make about it, like to kind of just think that it would just be passed off, like, oh, look, there's hair in the sink. Well, it's not mine. So, it's like somebody. So it just, yeah. So one time, I mean, look, standing between Mendoza and D, if you look at the photos of the band, and I'm right in between the two of them, it was like in between two chia pets, and it was only getting worse as years went by. So I had to get more and more and more and more. So when you look at the cover of Come Out and Play and all that shit, a lot of it was at that point starting to be reconstructed.
Wow. And you did it. I never knew. Never. Awesome. It looks great.
What I said, Joel, is my thing working right? I'm in one channel in my headphones all of a sudden for some reason. I don't know why.
It's just a loose thing.
Okay. What I'm saying, though, is how when I said coming out of the break, you may have heard me say to Frankie, do you know how old JJ is? Because I say that because it's remarkable because how good you look, but you're about to be 70,
no,
right?
I will be. I'm 69.
Well, God bless you,
I'll
dude.
be 70 next year. Next
you
year
look great.
will be
It's not a kiss ass.
We'll be a big thing. Well, look though, to be fair and honest and all that other cliche, if you look at the four bands out of 73, the four bands that started in 73, Kiss started in 73, Priest started in 73, AC/DC started in 73, Twisted started in 73. We're all 70.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's amazing.
We're all 20. We're all 20. I mean,
it's amazing.
We're all 20. We're all 20. in 73 when we all started. And now, I mean, Gene is 72.
Yeah, Gene's
believe
72.
so.
I just
Gene-
read that. Yeah.
Yeah, Gene's 72. And I'm sure, the guys in AC/DC are 70. So, I mean,
It's awesome.
Well, that's a great way to jump in on JJ's book, because we covered Frank's book, which is out today. JJ, your book is out now, right?
yes, it is.
Twisted Business. Yeah. And one of the stories that JJ finally, and Frank can relate to this, being us being such big Kiss fans, that JJ finally sets the record straight on the in his book on the history, the arc, the lineage of exactly what went on, because there was always that thing like JJ was supposed to be in Kiss.
Right.
That's not exactly what happened, but you did play with them.
Well,
Because this
yes.
is all covered in the book.
It's all covered in the book. It started innocently enough in an elevator conversation with a lawyer whose daughter I used to babysit for in the building. His name was Peter Thal, very famous entertainment lawyer, but this is 1972. And I had just stopped doing drugs a couple of months earlier. So now I'm completely straight, like not dealing, going to the book with the whole dealing and the drug addiction.
Which I want to
and all
touch
that
on
shit.
too, because it's something else.
It was like it was a crazy life, and I was totally straight. I was trying to figure out what to do. I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life, and I really didn't know. And I was transitioning from a Grateful Dead head to an Allman Brothers freak, into like this Bowie-ish glam thing, which I didn't quite. This was early in '72, and Peter Thal said, "But I'm still looking like the Grateful Dead," So Peter Thal says, "Do you want to be in a band? I'm representing a producer who has a band, and you're interested in auditioning?" I went, "Sure." He said, "Good. Here's the producer's name, Ron Johnson. Give him a call." I call him up. He says, "I got a band called Wicked Lester." I went, "Okay. What do they sound like?" He said, "Looking Glass. Like, Brandy, you're a fine girl.
That's an accurate description of what Wicked Lester sounded like.
That's exactly what they were.
Yeah.
That's exactly why they weren't going to be Wicked Lester anymore. Because Gene even said it to me when I met. So I called, I guess, Gene, and he says, "You playing? I can see you play." And I said, "Yeah, I'm playing this weekend at a church. I'm jamming in a band at a church on 6th Avenue and 12th Street." The band was called Scout. The drummer of the band was Doane Perry, who wound up being Jethro Tull's drummer for about 22 years, as a matter of fact. But we're all 20-year-old kids. And Gene and Paul come down, and I'm jamming on stage, and I walk to the back of the church, and they're standing there. And Gene says, "So what's your name?" I said, "John Segal." And he goes, "Yeah, it's too Jewish, man." And now let me just say, being a Jew but not being a religious Jew in any manner, I'm so Reformed, I'm almost Catholic. My parents were like non-religious, completely non-religious, and I had all my Jewish, Catholic, Roman Catholic friends. The only religion we ever had was the religion of drugs. That was it. If you had the right drugs and at the right party and you listened to the right music, we were friends. Nobody talked religion. I'd never had anyone say anything about Jewishness to me, let alone a Jew saying anything about Jewishness
telling
to
you
me.
it's too Jewish.
So I was like, "Too Jewish?" He goes, yeah. He goes, we're changing our names. He goes, so I'm Gene Klein. I'm changing it to Gene Simmons. I said, "Like the actress?" And he said, "No. I happen to be a fan of Kim Simmons, the guitar player from."
Canadian dude. Go for a soda.
No.
Doobie Brothers.
No. Kim Simmons, the British guitar player from Savoy Brown. It was the lead guitar player of Savoy Brown. It was Kim Simmons, and I go, "That's interesting." I said,
Kim Mitchell, I was thinking, go for a soda, the Canadian dude.
So I thought,
I got the right name.
So I thought, obviously, if he's referencing Savoy Brown, they're referencing British bands, which they were heavily influenced by, as we all were, heavily influenced by. So I went, "Okay, cool." And he goes, "And this is Stanley Eisen. He's changing this to Paul Stanley." I went, "Okay." He goes, "So I suggest, you change your name." And he goes, "Take your glasses off." I go, "Why?" He says, "You look too Jewish." I was like, "Okay, take my glasses off." Now, so then he goes, "Listen, here's a tape. Here's your reel-to-reel tape." He goes, "This is Wicked Lester. Kind of sounds like Looking Glass. We're not going to be this. If I invite you to a rehearsal, you're going to be like a friend. You're going to come down. You're going to meet these other guys in the band. They're going to have beards. They're all being fired. None of them know it. They're all gone." I went, "Cool." So I go down.
Could you hear Gene's doing this too?
So
Gene wrote the foreword to Frank's book, by the way.
So I go down, and they're all there with beards, and but not Paul and Gene. I was like, "Okay, cool." So then I jammed with them for a couple of times during a couple of weeks, and
you remember, were you playing covers or originals when you were jamming?
Oh, I did Zeppelin.
You played Zeppelin?
Oh, hell
cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did Zeppelin. Right away. And they also said, "Do you know who Slade is?" And I went, "I kind of think." And they said, "Well, they wear platform shoes." And the whole thing was going to be, we want to go for this English thing. I went, "Okay." So that's why I got the Anglos thing. You know, I've told this story a million times, and when I tell it to Jewish friends of mine who are very Jewish, they go, "It's self-hating Jews. This is like an example of self-hating Jews." I said, "Well, it's no different than every movie producer who said change your name from whatever in the Midwest to a Clark Gable or a fancy." I didn't take it in that way. I just took it as a market. Like Gene was a marketer. Let's be honest. He was showing that trait back then, so it never bothered me.
One of the great things in the book, when you mentioned the Grateful Dead, because I just finished reading your book like a day ago. One of the great things in the book is the fact you talk about. So I of course, I've known you a very, very long time, but I didn't know you in the early 70s when you're talking about, because people make this mistake all the time about Twisted Sister. There's two big mistakes that they make. They think that Twisted Sister started around 1983, when in fact it started in 1973. And they think that Dee Snider is the original guy of Twisted Sister, when in fact it's JJ who founded the band, and there were like 15 versions of Twisted Sister before the one everybody knows. But I did not know until I read your book of your, lack of a better word, proclivity for drugs.
Oh, you could say it. I'd say it right out. I was a drug dealer.
But you were a drug dealer and a drug user.
Supplied and all that
Usually you
stuff.
don't use your supply. Isn't that the rule of drug dealing?
Let me tell you how good I was.
Because you say you learned, in the book you say, I don't condone people dealing drugs, but I learned a lot from doing it.
Well, you have to be a people person to deal drugs, And also I dealt drugs in Europe, and I dealt drugs in Amsterdam in 1971, which was the drug capital of the world.
What were you dealing when you say drugs? Is it just a little weed or you heavy stuff?
Or?
It started out with weed, because everything started out like hippy dippy weed, and then it went on through that mescaline, acid, STP, DMT.
I don't even know what half of those things are.
What was big in those days?
It was huge.
Those were huge. So.
I mean, DMT makes LSD look like...
What's that stand for?
Dimethyltryptamine, which is incidentally the chemical released in your brain at the exact moment of death. That is what happens when people say they see a light or blah, blah, blah. That's DMT. You have DMT. Every one of us has DMT in our bodies. It's only released at our time of death.
So you studied this shit you were selling too. Look at this. He's like a pharmacist.
Man. If you ever did synthetic DMT, what you saw when you took it made LSD look like a walk in the park. But the thing is, DMT only lasts for a very short period of time. Thankfully, it only lasts about 10 minutes. And so you need people to sit on you while you're taking it, because otherwise you will just jump out of a freaking window.
I love this.
So I had guys sitting on both arms on my chest when I did it, and my brain was thrust like an SST at takeoff without a windshield.
So much fun.
I love this.
Do it tonight.
And what you saw, I read Timothy Leary's writings after I did it, and I saw exactly what he saw. I was thrust into the temples in the Mayan temples in Mexico. I saw the hieroglyphics on the wall. If there's any connectivity that we have genealogically, anthropologically to previous generations, it's there, because it was mind-blowing. And after I did acid about 250 times, which I also discuss in the book. I did it every day in the summer of '68 because I really wanted to learn how to take LSD
Amazing.
correctly.
He looks like this. And is this
how
short?
you're alive?
How exactly?
Well, look. And on top of this, I was taking drugs into other countries. On top of it, I got busted twice, talked my way out of 2 drug busts, and finally, in '71, wound up as a house dealer at the Paradiso in Amsterdam.
House dealer?
Yeah, the house dealer.
Insane. But here's the part about the drugs that I find the most entertaining.
Yeah.
And I've never done drugs, so I don't know anything what you're saying. But I can relate to this aspect of the drug thing. JJ says in the book that he loved the Grateful Dead when he was on drugs. And then as soon as he stopped doing drugs, he could never listen to Grateful Dead again. Like, the Grateful Dead was only effective to him on drugs.
Well,
and after you stopped him, you realized it's a fucking terrible band.
I saw him I saw the Dead 27 times. 26 times on acid. 27th time I saw him straight. It was the worst fucking band I ever heard in my life. So I say that in the documentary. By the way, I do say that in the documentary. And I got an email from a guy who goes, "Hey man, just watched your documentary. Saw what you said about the Dead. Signed Justin Kreutzmann." I'm like, God, the Grateful Dead's drummer is Bill Kreutzmann. Could that be a relative? And I write, "Are you related to Bill?" He goes, "That's my dad." I went, "I'm so sorry." He goes, "No, dude, that was the funniest shit I ever heard in my life." And we became really close friends. In fact, he is on my podcast this week. Justin Kreutzmann, because he produced the Grateful Dead documentary, which I spent 5 hours watching because I wanted to see if there was some some vestiges of LSD still creased in my
I was
brain.
going to say,
still.
you had some sort of
Relived the
trip
times.
back.
Dude, let me tell you
Reverse
something.
trip.
Jerry Garcia gave me a tab of acid at the Fillmore East. It really doesn't get more official.
No.
Only in the Fillmore can you go to a Dead concert. True story. Go in my pocket to take the acid as the band's about to go on. I drop the tab. I tell an usher, I dropped out there. He made everybody get up off their chairs. They're on the floor with flashlights going, the dude dropped his acid. Dude dropped his acid. Couldn't find it. The band walked out. He walked over to Jerry. He went, blah, 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 blah. Jerry gave him something. He gave it to me. And
See, I was born in the wrong time.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Those are the times to live.
You never
right there.
did drugs,
No,
did you?
I was never a drug
Me
guy.
neither.
But
I
it sounds
never-
like fun, though.
Yeah,
damn it.
except as I point out in the book, it all came crashing down in '72.
Of course, I'm
in a
kidding.
big, in a big way.
Yeah.
In a big way. My girlfriend, my best friend, junkies, and I had to stop.
No.
I just got echoes in my.
Yeah, we're getting, Joel, channels are out, echoes, there's all kinds of stuff going on in here.
So now here I am, totally straight, completely straight now.
Great.
And I'm auditioning for this Wicked Lester thing, and then I never heard from him again.
Really?
And I said, okay. So it didn't work out. I never thought twice about it.
So it actually never happened?
No, never happened.
wow.
I was never in Kiss or Wicked Lester. I just jammed with these guys. I'm assuming they must have jammed with 10 other guitar players, right? Nothing happened. Then I go, my last gasp, I spent the summer '72 in a hippie commune, and I'm living with a band that's doing Allman Brothers covers. And we did one show Labor Day weekend, and the band broke up. And then I'm sitting home doing nothing, twiddling my thumbs, thinking, what am I going to do? And I get a Bowie album in the mail with Fusion Magazine, Lou Reed, Bowie, and Martha Hoople, 1, 2, 3.
Wow.
Bing, bing, bing. I look up David Bowie, look at the pictures of Mick Ronson and go, that's me. Cut my hair off, dye it blonde. And now I'm sitting around going, now what? And a friend of mine calls me and says, you should go see this band called The Dolls at the Mercer Arts Center.
I love this.
Well, I knew them because they used to rehearse at this place called Talent Recon on 8th Avenue and 50th Street. Now, they were guys in local bands that I knew in the city, and they were not good players at all. We kind of knew them. Nobody took Johnny seriously, we just didn't. Whatever. Newly glammed up, I go to the Mercer Arts Center. Dolls come out, look amazing, start playing, and it was like worse than the Grateful Dead. Like it was fucking just awful.
You were on drugs or not at this time?
Totally straight. And I'm going, this is what I said to myself, and this is actually true. I walked out, and an executive, a guy in a suit comes up to me, and he goes, oh, did you go see the Dolls? I said, yes. What'd you think of them? I'm assuming he's a record executive. And I said, do you want my honest opinions? Yeah, I said, they look amazing and they suck. I said, if they ever learn how to play, they'll probably become a very successful band. That was my quote, exactly my quote, okay? But I went back the next week. I saw him again. Between the two dates, David Bowie played at Carnegie Hall. I see Bowie. Ridiculous, right? I mean, I saw him. They had no gimmicks. They just had a backdrop. They had no stage show, no nothing. They came out, they finished playing Chuck Berry songs, which, by the way, Trevor Boulder, when I met him many years later, said the reason why they did was they ran out of material. I loved that. Okay?
Honest.
Bowie's there. There's a picture of me and Bowie at Mercer Arts Center. He's sitting behind me. I'm sitting in front of him. How did I get the picture? The guy who did the Twisted Sister.
I was going to say, how'd you get better seats than Bowie?
Well, because the girls that took me to see the Dolls lived with Bill and Syl the year before in England. And they were classmates of mine in George Washington High School, who, incidentally, is where Eddie Ojeda went. So me, Eddie Ojeda, and Jane Rabb, who was one of the girls that took me to see the Dolls. Jane Rabb wound up being the producer of Sex and the City, Blue Bloods, and a ton of other TV shows. We were all schoolmates, and that was our little...
And Vicky Sue Robinson, right?
Well, Vicky a little later on. Wow. Well, Vicky Sue in the park... Yes, Vicky Sue and I used to hang out, get fucked up, and we fell asleep in Central Park at the Fountain one night, and it was the day before I was to get a photo shoot for Ingenue magazine that was doing a feature on me as high school troublemaker. And I remember it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and I said to Vicky, I got to call my mom. She probably thinks I was murdered in the park. And my mother said to me, where were you? I said, I fell asleep in the park. She goes, we have a photo shoot at 10 o'clock this morning at Ingenue. I had to run down. And there's a photo of me from the photo shoot in the book. Anyway, we digress. So obviously, Eddie, you read the book, and obviously there's a lot of stuff going on, and we haven't even talked about Twisted Sister.
I love it.
Well, there is, but the thing, and I told you when you gave me the book, I said I want to read it before I talk to you because that's helpful, obviously. But here's the best thing. One of my favorite stories in the book is the fact that you talk about the work Twisted Sister put in to building the career. As I said to people a bit younger like Frank and myself and people listening, they think of Twisted Sister coming out early 80s, overnight success, whatever, not knowing the 10 years that went in prior to that and the countless amount of shows in the New York, New Jersey area and everything that you built. And you say that when people come up to you even now and say, hey, come check out my band, one of your first questions is, how many shows have you done? And if it's not a certain amount of shows, you're like, come back to me when you've done 300 shows or something, because you just feel like they haven't put the work in yet. It can't be there yet. But when you go into the stories about Twisted Sister and the early lineups and all the different versions of the band, it's a story that actually made me laugh out loud. And that's about when you shared the bill with a chimpanzee. And I'm not talking about a band called Chimpanzee. I'm talking about a chimp. And Twisted Sister opened for the chimp.
Yeah, we opened for the chimp, and the chimp went over better than we did, as a matter of fact. And you know, as humiliating as that story is, I was sitting around with John Scher, the promoter.
Of course.
So John was working with an artist that I was managing. So I said to John, I said, how long have you been with the Capitol Theater? He said, oh, this many years. And I said, I got to tell you the most humiliating story in my life. I said, Twisted Sister played with this chimp called Mr. Jiggs. And he goes, I used to book Mr. Jiggs to the Capitol Theater and in Passaic. And I went, wait a minute. I went, you used to, he goes, yeah, I had Mr. Jiggs on a bill with Fleetwood Mac. I went, get the fuck out of here. Mr. Jiggs, I said, well, who headlined? He goes, well, Fleetwood Mac, of course. I said, well, we opened for the goddamn chimp. Okay. Now I'm on not Rogan, the other podcaster.
Corolla?
I'm on Adam's show. And he's asking what's the most humiliating thing we ever did. I said, open for a chip. He finds a video of Mr. Jiggs performing. And it's exactly how and why he blew us off the stage. He was
What kind of act is that?
So what he did was, okay, the club was called Dodds in Orange, New Jersey. And the club had a bar that was the size of the perimeter of the club with probably a 4-foot wall that went around the bartenders in the middle. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Jiggs would get on top of the bar with a rolling liquor cart, and he would stop by girls and he would light cigarettes for them and mix them drinks. And he wore a tuxedo. So if you go online and look for Mr. Jiggs in the tuxedo, you will see this, because Corolla pulled it up. I never saw it since
I see
it
Joe
happened.
Typing right now, by the way.
Okay. So
I'd love to see that.
So Mr. Jiggs really went over.
I feel like a Mr. Jiggs reunion tour is in order. Although I don't know how long chimps live. I don't think they have that lifespan.
Hey,
so Mr.
know.
Jiggs, I'm sure, is no longer with us, unfortunately.
Well, some fan said, dude, I saw you guys at Cardi's in Houston when male strippers opened for you. And I remember we were doing this tour early on the Can't Stop Rock and Roll tour, and we get to Cardi's in Houston, and the club, and we're in the back room, and I look outside, it's packed with girls. I said, oh, this finally shifted over. It's packed. And then, of course, we realized the reason why it was packed with these hot chicks was because there was these male strippers. The minute they left, the girls all of course left us with 5 dirtbags in the room,
The other revelation in the book is that there was a brief time in your life where you had a hit out on you. The clubs in New York were owned by...
Who are you?
Yeah, but those guys... But none of those guys took the hit out on me. It was taken out by a studio... Our threat of a hit was taken by a studio owner.
But you had to pay the money to get the hit taken off.
So
you got
out of
on them.
We had a copacetic understanding had to be made in order for the threat of the hit to be taken off.
Wow.
Because it had something to do with money that you borrowed money...
No.
Something to do with the record for the demo. And
what happened was the Under the Blade demos of Eddie Kramer were recorded at Electric Lady Studio.
Okay.
And you know how you do a studio deal where you go off the record, if the demos get signed, you do the album at the studio. That's a pretty standard
spec deal. Yeah.
It's a spec deal. That wasn't the issue. So we always understood that if we got a deal, but we never got a deal, so it didn't matter. So 3 years later, we decided, since the demos didn't go anywhere and our fans, we were sick of saying we're going to get a deal and we weren't getting a deal, we made up our own record label, Twisted Sister Records, just to print records out and give them out at clubs as a tchotchke, like, hey man, we have a record deal.
Yeah.
when we were signed to Secret Records, which was the Kramer tapes were in '79, so it was '81.
Bad name for a record company, by the way. You don't want your record to be a secret that it came out.
Well, it was such a secret, but we can get into that. But
and the other name was Handshake Records.
well, there was
it?
many. There were many.
Those are two deals they had. Secret
we had
Records
more.
and
We had
Handshake.
We had X. We had Handshake. We had. Well, don't forget that Handshake had three. I don't know. We're gonna jump from story to story. It was like a bunch of old Jews in Boca. You know, we can just finish the goddamn story you're talking about, because otherwise it's gonna be. Oh, but I forgot.
There's not a lot of time.
So the bottom line. Let me just finish the stupid thing about the studio. So of course we don't have a record out, but what happened was the guys who printed the singles for us, the local Queens guys who printed the singles, you know, they thought they were doing us a favor by giving it to Sam Goody. So the owner of the studio walks down to Sam Goody and sees our record for sale. So he assumes we have a record deal. Being a record deal, he's now owed $25,000, and he calls us up and he says, "I see you got a record deal." I said, "Well, no." He said, "Well, yeah." He goes, "That's a record." He pulls out the single. He goes, "That's a record. That's your name on it. You got a record deal. I want my $25,000. If I don't get it, I'm gonna have to break your legs." I'm like, huh? Like Mark Puma and I were in that meeting. I looked at Mark. I said to the guy, "Can you excuse us for a minute? We need to have a conversation." I walked out there. I said, all the years and all the guys that I have dealt with, all these freaking dudes that we have dealt with that have dubious reputations, and to be clear, one of the clubs, Henry Hill, actually worked at, so it doesn't get much more.
He used to hang out on my radio show here in New York 20 years ago. Yeah, he used to hang out in the lobby.
Hendry,
I had him up once. For real.
So anyway, you know, I said, this guy actually threatened to break my legs. What are we going to do? And so we spoke to, you know, Frankie the Shoe, Billy the Fork, Freddie the Knife, and, you know, and we negotiated a copacetic understanding that we were going to have to pay some money. And it just so happened the secret deal did happen right when that happened, and they said, "We'll give you a $10,000 advance," and so we just paid off.
Wow.
All right, one other thing here, because what I want to do is I want to, since Frank and JJ are both here, take some questions for either of them if you'd like at 844-686-5863, 844-6-volume. Of course, Frank Bello from Anthrax, his book is out now, Fathers, Brothers, and Sons. We talked about that at the top of the show, and JJ French, a Twisted Sister, we're talking to right now. But you know, what's remarkable to me, 3 million records of Stay Hungry sold, and you guys go bankrupt. How does that happen? How does that, like, you, for people that don't, this is covered in JJ's book, but to have that amount of records sold at that time and that level of success,
it hurts.
You're selling stereos or something. D's doing whatever he's doing. That's still remarkable to me.
Well, first of all,
in retrospect,
our record company chairman Ahmet Erdogan, I didn't realize, but Ahmet Erdogan's Turkish for no royalties till 2048. That's number one. Secondly, putting all that aside, I say this in the book. There's three kinds of people in this world: the people who make it happen, the people who watch it happen, the people who say what happened. And 99% of the people go what happened, and a very small percentage watch it happen, and a very tiny group make it happen. I always was going to be the guy that either made it happen or watched it happen. I was never going to go what happened. So the fact that it happened was not a surprise to me.
The bankruptcy.
Or a shock to me.
Wow.
Really?
Not at all. Yeah, I go into...
But how, just in terms of sheer numbers, were you not getting paid what you were supposed to?
No, because it had nothing to do with the record deal. It had to do with us being sued by a merchandise company. We took the largest advance at the time of Come Out and Play. The three biggest merch advances in history were paid to Madonna, Springsteen, and Twisted Sister.
Wow.
And we took that.
Amazing.
And then the tour tanked. And nobody in their right mind thought that they would actually come back for the money. Because in the record business, they gamble. Mm-hmm. And they gambled with Springsteen, and he made $1 million. And they gambled with Madonna, and they made $1 million. And we figured, okay, so it didn't work out with us. Big freaking deal. They write it off. Our lawyers said they're not writing it off. They want to come after you.
Because you didn't recoup the advance for
not
merch.
Even close.
Coming off of Stay Hungry, everyone would have been like, that's a no-brainer. That's a shoe-in, 3 million records. But nobody saw Come Out and Play tanking. And when it did, the whole bottom fell out on everything, and we wanted their money. It was even more than
that. That tanked, and then, of course, Love is for Suckers tanked even more. And then the energy ran out. Look, as I detail in the book, and I'm going to say this up front so everybody understands this, the relationships between Dee, me, Mark, and Eddie are better than we've ever been. And we talk every day.
Cool.
And we do that because our songs are the most licensed songs in the history of heavy metal. We do that because every single day there's deals to be made with our songs. You could hate Twisted Sister all you want. We're not going to take it. It's the most famous heavy metal rock and roll anthem on the planet Earth. 2 days ago, I got a video from Honduras, where the president was using "We're Not Going to Take It" as his theme song running for president. I'm not going to get into the legality of how he can use it or not. That's not the point. The point I'm talking about is the worldwide recognition of this song. Someone sent me a video last week of the president of Spain using "We're Not Going to Take It." 2 years ago, they were singing "We're Not Going to Brexit" on the steps of the parliament. We're talking about a song, along with "I Want to Rock," which generates an enormous amount of income. And because we have these songs that are enormous, the band doesn't have to play, which is why the band kind of retired. So we have a niche that is very, very unique. Like Queen has "We Will Rock You," "We Are the Champions," and they're maybe the biggest songs of the 70s. I Want to Rock" and "We're Not Going to Take It" are the two most licensed songs of the 80s. We're very, very, very comfortable with that as part of our historical backdrop. The bankruptcies occurred way after all this other stuff happened, had nothing to do with the record label. And also, out of respect to the record label, after all the smoke cleared, they gave us back 4 of our albums for 20 years to do what we wanted to do with.
Wow.
So they made up for it in many ways, which I also go into the book. And that was because of personal relationships that we had with certain executives that wound up running the label, including Jason Flom, by the way.
So do you control "Stay Hungry"?
No.
That's the only one they didn't give you.
But we re-recorded it. Right. And our re-records are the
way
ones that
around
we
it,
license.
of course, sure.
Now, okay, do I think record labels are criminal enterprises? Yeah. Do I think that they set up slave labor, indentured servitude? Yeah. Do I think that the idea of a record label where you sign to a label, you make the record, you have to pay them back for it, and you still don't own it is not one of the most egregious, disgusting things on the planet Earth? Yes. However, we signed it. So did the Beatles. So did the Stones. So did Who's That, Floyd, Queen, and 400 billion other artists. Taylor Swift can go on scream about "My masters are not mine." Get with it, man. Nobody owns them. 1/zillionth of 1% do. But here's the thing. The re-record clause on the contract was the only clause ever put in a contract that was pro-artist. And my theory behind that is they were so arrogant, the labels back in the 40s, they figured 5 years. Who the hell wants to... 5 years after we sign a guy and they suck the blood out of him, nobody's going to want these guys. So who cares? Well, guess what? That clause is the free clause. So we say to people, re-record your songs. Re-record them. Sell your versions of them if you can. You have a right to do it.
Frankie, you guys did that with
Bush.
With Bush, right?
It was great.
You did that with Bush, and at one, remember, wasn't that the record with Joey M. Bush on it too?
Yeah. It was, it was a good way around it, JJ. That's the
and it's legal, and that's it.
Legal,
I got a phone call once from one of the presidents of our record label who said, "We're very disappointed you're selling your re-records." I almost fell off my chair. I put my teeth back in my mouth. I went, "Excuse me." I went, "You're disappointed?" I said, "The one clause that's pro-artist, and you are." I said, "I'll tell you what. Give me a check for $20 million. I will promise to never sell a re-record for the rest of my life."
So when they did that, did you guys try to sound like the original?
Exactly.
Exactly like the sounds, amps, everything?
In fact, the truth of that is, when we did the Still Hungry album, we re-recorded everything. And then we sent around the re-records, and people were turning them down. We're going, "It sounds exactly..." Well, it was a half step down. And so when we were comparing the two to see if they were going to buy it, they go, "Sounds out of tune to me," because they don't know. We had to go back in the studio. We had to do A440 versions of it again. Yeah.
Wow.
All right, we got to do a break. When we'll come back from the break, we'll have a good 10, 15 minutes or so. JJ French of Twisted Sister is here. His book, Twisted Business, is out now. You're just getting the broad strokes of that. Frankie's book is out now, Fathers, Brothers, and Sons. That came out today. 2 great rock and roll reads. Be sure to pick them up and check them out. We'll come back and we'll let you guys fire away at Frank and or JJ. 844-686-5863, 844-6-VOLUME. Grab a few phone calls for the guys and finish up. Coming up right after this on Trunk Nation.
Keep your target in your sight. Don't be sidetracked or shut down. Let pretenders feel your fight. Trunk Nation,
a show that talks about rock
with Eddie Trunk,
my rock and roll blood brother.
SiriusXm Volume. Trunk Nation.
Music talk that rocks.
We're honestly only working off of conversations.
With Eddie Trunk. SiriusXM Volume.
Are you talking to me? All right, I want to get a quick call in here real quick, and then we want to talk to, because John in New York's been waiting a long time to get on the air, and then JJ brought up something great during the commercial break that we absolutely need to cover, and I had it in my notes, and I want to get to it. But John, go ahead, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks. Anthrax, awesome band. Sorry, questions for JJ though.
That's fine.
When you were heading over to like Amsterdam and you were on your drug craze and all that stuff, were you financially set, or do you come from money?
No, I come from money I made dealing. That was the good part of dealing. You made a lot of money in those days. And by the way, life was inexpensive in those days, like really, really, really cheap. A lot of people don't know this. The reason why so many hippies went to Amsterdam in 1971 was because the airlines made a deal called Youth Fare to Europe, $200 round trip. So $200, and every low-life idiot that I knew in Central Park wound up in Amsterdam. So I thought I was getting away from them, and I get to Vondel Park, and there's every moron that I left back in New York is there. But to be in Amsterdam in 71, to be in London in 71, 71 was the summer that Who's Next came out. Every Picture Tells a Story comes out. Sticky Fingers comes out. Back in those days, there was free concerts in the Hyde Park. There was music blasting out of everywhere. It was a great year to be 19 years old.
Great.
Well, real quick, when you were over there and you did all that crap, I mean, craziness on drugs, were you ever able to hang on to stuff that you bought, maybe like an album or any of that crazy shit that you have now?
Good question. I bought several European pressings of Hendrix albums and Stones albums, which I still have.
Yeah, oh wow!
It's good. Actually, good question, because I was at the Band of Gypsies. I was at the New Year's Eve show at the Fillmore that was turned to an album, so I have the French pressing of that. Awesome. I was at Madison Square Garden when the Stones did Ya-Ya's Out. I have pressings of that. I was at the Fillmore when John Mayall did the Turning Point albums. I got pressings of that. So I was at a lot of places at the right place at the right time, and they were turned into live shows. It's a good question though, because I did buy a bunch of records from there, including
no musical instruments?
No, I brought a guitar with me at the time when I went over there. I think I had an SG. No, I had a Junior. I had a Les Paul Junior, which I brought with me and brought all through Europe. Carried it with me.
Good job, man.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Appreciate you calling. You talk about that in the book too. There's a difference between wanting to be a rock star and being a musician. And your thing was just like, hey, I always know I'm going to be an okay guitar player, but I'm fine with somebody else writing the songs. And I'm fine with this because you just wanted to make the dream happen. That was your thing. The sunglasses, the look, the glam thing that pulled you in. That's what it was about.
Well, I gave a quote from Ahmet Ertegun said this to me once when I asked him how is he successful at the label where he's a jazz guy and he had Zeppelin, all this. And he goes, and what he said to me basically was, success is easier if you don't mind who gets the credit. Now, that's a heavy statement to make. But frankly, I'm not a singer and I'm not a songwriter. I've never begrudged Dee's doing it. I mean, if I wasn't with him, I wasn't going to do it. So I always believe in collaboration. That's why I have a co-author in my book. I think collaborations are better. I think it helps you work better. And I certainly wouldn't be successful had it not been for Eddie and Mark and Dee and AJ. It just it never would have happened.
Frank, you also used a co-writer in your book. We mentioned it before, Joel MacGyver. How did that process work?
Joel's the editor. He runs Bass Player magazine. I've known him for years. We've done.
But as far as actually writing a book with him, and you
via Skype,
but he pulled these stories out of
you.
Dude,
he knows how to light a fire under my ass. And it's weird. Once you start the memories coming out, they just flow. And the great stories that you don't even think you have in your mind.
So it's almost
anymore.
Like for both of you, the co-writers actually served as almost an interviewer. And did they actually transcribe everything too and then put it in your words pretty much? Is that how it works?
Steve is a writer. He's a professional author, bestseller, motivational speaker. So we're very much on the same wavelength. But I have also 15 years of diaries. So, and that's really what's extraordinary. I have 15 years of diaries in which I can actually get dates, times, places, why things happened the way they did. So pretty much how I saw things were how things went. Because what was the story of the Motley Crue? 4 different books, 4 different ways to look at it, 4 different stories. With Twisted, for the most part, my interpretations of what happened were pretty much the way it happened. But still in all, I'm sure everyone processes it their own way. But what Steve did was he basically looked at me like my wife would be and go, okay, enough. Like, can we move on to the next story? This is a good story. This is not a good story. This won't help the flow of the book. Because if it was up to me, it would have been 19th volume History of the Jews. It just would have gone on and on and on and on. Like my wife, this is what my wife says about the book. She goes, I'm so fucking glad you have a book. Because the next time we have a dinner party and someone asks you a fucking question about your band, I'm going to say, here's the book. Here's his email.
She's going to have a box of them ready.
She goes, email him any questions and let's fucking talk about anything but it is.
Hey, while we're talking about writers, this is a guy we need to bring up and talk about here for a second with the few minutes we have left, and that is Malcolm Dome. The music world was stunned and saddened and shocked a few days ago when we learned that Malcolm Dome passed away. Now, if you don't know who Malcolm is, that's understandable, especially being a U.S. audience, because Malcolm Dome was British. He was a writer in England. He was without a doubt one of the most respected writers in rock music. I grew up reading Malcolm Dome because Kerrang! Magazine was my Bible as a kid. I would drive, as soon as I got my license, I'd drive to the import record store and buy it every week, every 2 weeks. That's where I first discovered Malcolm. Later on, I met Malcolm a couple times when I was working for labels. We would bring him over to do some stuff. Up until his death, he was very active still in covering bands, writing books.
Always into it.
Incredibly celebrated writer and great writer, British writer in the world of rock music. And JJ, you were saying that Twisted Sister has a greatest hits coming out, and Malcolm contributed to it.
Yeah, he contributed the liner notes. In fact, he has the final quote on the album jacket. Last May, I called him. I said, I need some stuff. He said, no problem. Sent me these beautiful quotes. There's 6 quotes. One from each member of Twisted and one from Malcolm, and 6 stories, and the last one's from Malcolm.
So cool.
He made all of us better. He championed metal before metal broke. The new wave of British heavy metal could be laid at his feet in a lot of ways. Maiden, of course, would say that AC/DC would say it. You guys would say it.
Maiden put out a big statement about
Malcolm. My God, it breaks my heart. This guy was the heart and soul of what we were in that period of time. And when I go back to ours being signed by Secret Records, no kidding. All jokes aside, the crew of Malcolm Dome, Pete Way, Lemmy, those guys around us is what gave us the credibility to break in England, and they're all gone.
Yeah,
and it breaks my heart.
He was a really accomplished writer and a great guy. I know Frankie's written a lot with you. He's done a lot of pieces on you guys as well.
Yeah, he's been great to Anthrax. Always rest his soul. I had no idea.
Nobody knows what happened. Nobody did.
I had no idea.
It came as a huge shock. We don't know if it was a sudden thing or something that he was dealing with that we didn't know about. But what the bottom line is, he's gone. And anybody in the that's a British rock fan or artist or anybody based there, any artist, American or British, you certainly know Malcolm and his contributions. He was a giant in the world of rock journalism.
He will be missed.
He will. Susan in New Mexico. Hey, Susan.
Hey, Eddie. Nice to hear. Thanks for letting me on. I just want to say, JJ, love Twisted Sister, one of my favorite bands. I was glad you mentioned Slade. Slade is actually one of my all-time favorite bands. Love them. And Eddie,
Susan, I think Susan's radio is up in the background and it's confusing her. But thank you, Susan, for your call.
It's a soap opera.
Slade is one of those bands that they're just not known in the U.S. They're just not. If they're known in the U.S., they're known because Quiet Riot had hits with Quiet Riot's biggest song is a Slade tune.
I also want to add this with much respect to Kiss. So in September of '72, Gene called me I called him to find out if they had got a guitar player because they were still advertising. And they said, no, we have a guy. His name is Paul Fraley. And would you like to come down and hear the band with him? And I went, sure. And he said, give us a couple of weeks. And they invited me to the Loft. And I went to the Loft the day that they played the Kissified versions of Wicked Lester songs for their producer, Ron Johnson. So the only people in the Loft were me, Ron Johnson, and my friend Tommy, who escorted me down there. And we sat there, and there was Kiss, and you could tell the Kiss logo was on a bed sheet, and they had Marshall amps, which they didn't have before. American bands did not play Marshalls in those days. They did not. They used Fenders. They used other shit. And they played Kissified. And I went, wow, look at the dolls. They don't know who the hell they are. You look at this, they know what they're doing. So it doesn't surprise me.
All right, we got a few minutes left to go, just literally a few. JJ, any promotional stuff you want to mention before we have to run out of time for the book or Twisted or anything? Well,
really quick, the book really is about the Twisted method of reinvention. That's really what the book is. It's a biz war. It's a business book and a memoir, and it's about the Twisted method of reinvention, which basically speaks to the fact that Twisted Sister was turned down more times than a bed sheet in a whorehouse, and we've come back more times than Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers. I mean, that's really the whole story of Twisted Sister, and it's how we continue to come back over and over and over again, and why we're still here 50 years later.
Are you coming back again?
Well, you know
you
what?
coming back
Come on,
again?
baby, come on, do this.
There are no. I don't know if there's enough ibuprofen to have me.
Dude, with the new look. The new look is everything. That's the new look, dude. Come on.
So I don't know. But we talk every day. We do talk every day. We get along great. Everyone loves each other, and we're there to support each other, and we're wonderful. And right now, the only thing is with Twisted, we have a double vinyl record for vinyl collectors coming out November 17th. It's going to be a colored vinyl. It's going to have one album is going to be the Greatest Hits Studio, and the other is going to be Greatest Hits Live, some of the best shows from England. That's why Malcolm wrote some of the liner notes in it. So get that as well, and get all the stuff for Christmas, including Frank's book too, since we're here to help you.
And you can see Frank on Friday if you're in New York City.
Yes.
What's the name of the place
Revolution
again?
Records.
Revolution Records.
I'll be there the day after.
7
you doing
o'clock.
it right after?
I'm doing it right after. I'm on Saturday. Yeah. Well, what day are you doing it?
Friday
I'm doing
night,
it Saturday.
So Friday and Saturday, weekend at Revolution
Weekend at
Records.
Revolution Records in New York.
Records.
Oh, Generation. Why did I say Revolution? I screwed up.
he's giving the
I've been
wrong
saying the whole.
place.
I'm sorry. I should have looked at my freaking phone. Generation. Thank you for
Records.
correcting.
Yeah,
I'm an
thank
idiot.
you, JJ. This
I
guy's
want
giving the wrong
10%,
place.
dude.
Dude, I took some of the drugs that you brought.
Exactly.
But yes, Generation. Sorry, Generation. They're gonna cancel
7
me.
o'clock Friday.
Friday,
Frank
Generation.
at Generation Records in New York City.
And you blew it.
Saturday, JJ is there. Same time. 7 o'clock.
I think 6.
6 o'clock.
7, I can't-
JJ's a little older. He's got to get out. He's got to get done sooner.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Eddie. Okay. Well,
Not by much, but just a little. You got Anthrax shows coming?
Sometime. Go to anthrax.com. I have no idea. I'm concentrating on one thing at a time, dude.
by the way, say hi to Mike Monterulo for me.
Of course, he's probably listening right now. Of course, I will do that.
What's going on with the record?
I can't talk about it. I'm not allowed. Dude.
Who are you all of a sudden that can't talk about
I'm very, very private. I'm a very private person.
Get out of here.
What is this? What is this? The end of a James Bond movie that you can't talk about?
Are you writing or not?
Yeah, we're writing. I'm going next Tuesday to Charlie's house. We're writing a record.
All right.
Now we're not recording. We're very
all cryptic.
Because they all get on my ass. Why'd you say all this stuff about the band? I gotta hear them all the fucking time.
All right. Thank you, JJ French. Twisted Business out now. Thank you, Frank Bello. Fathers, Brothers, and
Amazon.
Sons.
It's on Amazon. You can Amazon. Buy it on Amazon if you don't find it in the bookstore. Both of us.
I love it. Thank you, JJ.
Frankie's book is out today.
Yes, today.
So congrats. And JJ's has been out, but either way, check them both out. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks,
I'll
y'all.
be back live again tomorrow.